out of the blue, I am going to do a video to show you how to completely replace the key contacts on a Korg Polysix D1 with the new ones that are now being supplied. Show you around the Synth cave first, and the Polysix. Just going to talk about the Polysix for a minute, just because I've been involved in a thread on Gearspace just in the last couple of days, which reminded me to get these key contacts and replace this. And there's a whole load of people going on about how they're incredibly badly built, etc. And I just thought I'd show you this one up close just before we do the repair. A quick up-close look at the Korg Polysix before we take her apart. So, construction. Yeah, originally the chipboard end cheeks on these, you know, they were horrendous. But I've got a Korg Modypoly over here and a Korg Polysix, and they've both been replaced on both of these. Once you do that, this thing could pretty much be new out the factory today. It's in great condition. I just would say to anyone who's listening to people saying they're terribly poorly built, the batteries leak. Well, yeah, the batteries did leak. I mean, it's, however, you know, 30 odd, 40 years old synth, or whatever it is, 30 odd. Yeah, that's been sorted out. If it hasn't leaked by now, it's not going to leak, and it's been replaced. The only thing that you do need to sort out is key contacts. And the thing is, there is an easy, cheap fix for them where you can just glue a little bit of cardboard on the back of the contacts, and you know, that will work for a while. But fabulously, there's a company, I bought mine from LA Synth Co, that now provides entirely new key contacts. They're not super cheap, but you don't have to replace the whole keyboard at once. But since I'm going to have the keyboard out, I am going to do that. Now, just go back to these. The thing about these missing notes, on my synth, if I haven't played it for a while and there's a couple of sticky ones, if I play them a few times, they actually come back, and then I'm able to play it normally. And, you know, it's not as though the entire keyboard has that problem. But there will be some notes, particularly these two, that I cannot resurrect, so I'm just going to go the whole hog. The other thing is the keyboard itself, you know, it actually feels pretty good. Got Oberheim OBXA just underneath it, you know, probably feels better than that. I've got a Jupiter 8 over there, not as good as that, not much is as good as the Jupiter 8. But you know what, I would say this is a well-made synth. It's not complicated, it's easy to keep it going, and when, like me, you've got the MIDI retrofit on it, a new box on the ends, and the key contacts are done, it's a fabulous synth. So I thoroughly recommend it. It has its own kind of 70s sound. Right, so enough of the waffling, we're going to get on and do the repair. Right now, I've had this open before, and I know that you've got to take the keyboard out, and it's screwed in from underneath, so we'll have a look at that, and I don't think it's much more complicated than that. I might also solder in the wire for the cutoff that comes with the Tubutech MIDI upgrade for this, which has never been attached in the past. I may do that, I may not, I've no idea. I'm just making this up as I go along today. So, from A to Z, how to do this job. Now, the one thing with this Polysix is, when it came, it's got the wrong screws in the top cover. I wonder if whoever owned this before recognises this synth now. And it's the only thing really that slightly bugs me. I actually ordered some new screws to replace these with, in black ones that you can get off eBay, really cheaply, sent in from China. And there were a couple of different comments on the internet as to whether these are M3s or M4s. I bought some M3s and they're not M3s, they are M4s. So I've bought some more replacement black screws to match these ones. And if you want to do the same, they're M4s. So I'm just going to take these off. Actually, before I do that, I can tell this is totally spontaneous. I am going to pull all the leads out the back. And then we can open her up. And you know, I don't know, I think that looks pretty neat, pretty lovely in there. It doesn't give me a feeling of a cheap synthesizer at all, particularly with these wooden end cheeks on. I have a really soft spot for this synth, even though, as you've seen, you know, and that's part of the reason I showed you before, I've got loads of synths. This still has its very own special sound. Okay, so I'm going to set up the camera somewhere else. Let me take the screws out the bottom and move this keyboard out. I'm going to remove this newly arrived Osmose, which I'm showing you apropos of nothing actually, apart from it's an amazing new thing. I've been on the waiting list for this for 3 years. It's got here and I haven't quite edged it into a space there. There's a modal over there which has to go, but I haven't got around to moving it yet. So, finally pick up the Osmose, beautiful thing that it is, and move it out. So I've turned Korg Poly 61 over and we're going to just unscrew here. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws here. As I said, I haven't planned this, so it's potentially only these screws I need to undo. However, I'm just going to undo them all now, and if I need to put those back in, I'll put them back in afterwards. I mean, it seems like a solidly put together synth, you know, well designed, and you can feel that hanging a little bit there, so I'm not going to take these out all the way right now. I think I'll finish them off by hand once I've turned it the other way around. Kind of makes sense to me. To do that, I think. Actually, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll turn it over and then I'll unscrew those from underneath if I need to. And we'll take it from there. So, okay. So it feels like, certainly the keyboard's nice and loose now. We might have all that we need out. So if I take those ones that are just remaining there, one more over here clearly needs to go, and those other 2 screws I was talking about, you can see where they actually attach in here, so yeah, clearly they have to come out as well, so we'll do them now. So all 6 of those screws out. Wow, nice. Right, now so I can take the keyboard out completely, I'm going to have to unattach it from the board down there. I'm going to have to gently lift that off. Okay, so we just want to gently unclip that, and then there is our keyboard entirely separated. So we'll get onto that in a moment, but what you can see here is my Tubutech upgrade. And I am going to need, also while I'm here today, to take a red cable, which is just off camera here. I'll show you afterwards. It's the red of all the cables running off there. So we're just going to get on and have a look at replacing the key contacts in the keyboard. It's a nice solid piece of keyboard this, for all that people slag it off. Right, continue my completely ad hoc replacement of key contacts for a Korg Poly 61. There you go, that's how they come from LA Synth Co. The important thing to note out of these is each of these contacts are strips of 6, apart from one which is a 7, and if you buy a full kit they will give you the 7 which goes on the very bottom of the keyboard and the other 6 on top, and they kindly throw an extra one in. I've heard that reported before, so if you have any issues, there you go, you've got a spare one. I like that approach. These aren't cheap. It cost me best part of 100 quid, but I really love this synth, so that's not a problem for me. And as I said before, you don't need to replace all of them, but if you've got it open, you know, why not? Other point to make, well actually let's pull one of these out to have a look. I'm going to be very careful. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is one of the 6 ones. As you may or may not be able to see, these black, I think carbon little contacts at the bottom are what are pressed down on by the key when it presses down from the other side to make contact with a gold contact strip in there. I'm going to open this up now and show you how that works. I'm going to pop that back in, but importantly, not touching these carbon contacts. I'm told that's important, so I'm not going to risk it and try it. Okay, so going to go through each of these. Should actually get my drill out to do this, it'd be quite a bit quicker. Actually that needs a smaller bit. Swap that over for, let's say this would be good. Yeah, that's good. These are all nice and tight, which bodes well. Never been taken out before. Which is why contacts finally need replacing. You know, you've got to say, when you're using a synth in 2023 that first came onto the market in the early 80s, having to do a little bit of maintenance like this on it is not a big deal for all the people who complain so much on the forums. Of course, not everybody complains. There's a lot of people like me who just accept them for what they are, but for those that do, you know, it's clearly not for you. Go and buy a new synth. But I've got to say, you know, one of the reasons all of us have this many synths, and the question from the uninitiated is, why have you got that many synths? Aren't they all the same thing? You've got keys in. They all sound different, and there isn't anything that sounds like Korg Poly 61. People kind of assume that it sounds like the Juno, which I've got there just because they're one oscillator polysynth, but it doesn't sound anything like it at all. Could do the same job in a studio, but this has an instant 70s vibe to it for me. It really does. And it's similar with the Modypoly, which I think shares a lot with this. I'm not that tedious a geek that I know exactly what the filter chips are, etc., but I think they're the same. I just love the sound of the Modypoly as well. Love it. Funnily enough, MS-20 there, I think I'm probably going to move on because I'm not a collector. If I don't use something, it goes. And I gotta say, the MS-20 isn't really for me. The Modypoly and the Polysix, however, absolutely are. Love them. Two of my absolute favourites. And you know, and that's ahead of things like a Mini Moog. I mean, a Mini Moog, you got to say nowadays. I had a reissue one of those and that went. I just didn't use it much. It wasn't what I was after. So here we go. Oh, I see everything held in by plastic clips on the bottom here. I'm just going to put these screws somewhere safe. And then we'll have a look at what we have here. Unclip that. Not done this before, so I'm just being careful. Yeah, there we go. There we go. So I've got to remember, yeah, I can remember which way around that is. Wow! You know what? I wouldn't guess by looking at those that they are the age that they are. And these replacement ones, I have to say, slight difference in colour. That's about it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now that's interesting. That's got the 7 at the top. And the 6 elsewhere, I guess. Yeah, obviously it's just a contact, it doesn't matter. So when I said there's a 7 at the bottom and the rest are 6, it looks to me like that doesn't matter. if I've got it right. Yeah, doesn't appear to matter. Right, so I guess we pull these out now. Just double checking in my head, if I turn that round, that is the bottom there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to replace it the way it is rather than do 7. Do you know what? I'm looking at this and this looks as though it's already had them replaced. These are a different colour to these. So you've got 1, 2, 3 that are completely different. You know what? I'm thinking that somebody has already upgraded to these lighter colour ones here over those darker ones there. But I've just no way of knowing which is which. So somebody has been in here and already done, when they put the MIDI mod in, which was done before I got it, and I'm just going to upgrade that a little bit by soldering a wire for the filter, and put the case on, they must have come in here and done that. That's a little bit intriguing. I'm just going to replace them all because I've got a replacement for all of them. Actually, these would be the old ones and these would be the new ones. That's why I've got more stuff sticking at the top there, and I've got a couple that won't respond at the bottom here. Do you know what? I bet if I just replace those, I'd have a fully working keyboard. What do I do? Oh my goodness, you've got me in a live quandary here. I mean, it's stupid. I'm just going to take them all out and I will know then I've got some that are darker colour and some are a lighter colour, and I can pass them on to people if they need them, I guess, for them to use. Anyway, let's pull this one off. I'm not going to be too rough, be quite gentle, there's no point in causing any issues. Do you know what, actually, just cleaning these contacts is going to make all the difference. I mean, it looks to me like that clearly has not been replaced, because it doesn't look as though, certainly doesn't look as though that's been cleaned there. Let's take away my new one over here before I get confused as to which is which. I'm going to take them all out in order. Gosh, look at the mess there. Oh, unless somebody's actually been in with alcohol and tried to clean these, because that's what I am going to do next. I'm going to go through them all. I'm interested to see this one's a different colour, what it looks like underneath compared to these. Equally poor, I would say. Ah, look at that. So no, these are old ones. So that, see the white contacts there, they are clearly where the carbon has worn off underneath, and so things aren't working properly. You can actually buy a paint, I believe, to recoat those, but I'm not going to bother. So these are obviously new ones, so I didn't actually have to replace them at all. Could have saved myself some cash by pulling this apart before ordering, but you know, the one thing about vintage synths is you get to a point you can't be bothered cutting corners in that way. It's easier just to order the whole thing, see what happens. Right, let's see what other horrors lie under here there. Actually, I think I had a particularly dodgy one, I'm guessing around about here, so I'm going to pull this out and see if I've got the carbon completely missing off the bottom in one of these again. Yeah, there we go. Those three completely gone. So actually, I could get away with just replacing all these ones and not those, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to know that I've probably got 4 spurs to pass on to somebody if they want them. So if you know me on Gearspace, you can pop round, buy me a beer, and maybe I'll pass these on to you. Yeah, they're in good condition. Oh, look at the state of those. No wonder I had issues in the bottom. I guess the bottom gets whacked more heavily over the years. than the tops, and that's why they're in such a state there. So woof, they all need replacing. Yeah, so I am going to replace even the new ones. It's interesting. It's interesting how some of them look absolutely pristine, even on the same strip, and the others look in a terrible state. Okay, so I'm going to give these a good cleaning next. Let's pull all of these out. Put them all in a box together somewhere. And there are these new ones. You know, I think it goes to show that somebody's tried to fix this before. It's better to do what I'm doing and just do the whole job in one go. Don't do a few bits and save a few quid, because it's just a pain in the backside further on. They're going to need doing, so do them. Right, now, alcohol. I always need a drink around about this time of day, so just kidding. I've got some isopropyl alcohol down here. And I'm going to just use this with a lint-free cloth. Well, I hope it's still lint-free. And give all of these a good wipe over. Again, while I'm here, let's make sure everything's good, so see what difference that makes. No, it's interesting. I'm sure I heard that these were gold plated. In this light, I don't look it, but yeah, maybe they are. Alright, this is going to be really boring. So I'm just going to pause this for a minute and then carry on. While I am cleaning, here is something that's quite interesting, and I don't know if you can see it in this light, but I can now, is that these keys here, these contacts here, are clearly gold plated and in really good condition. Whereas these down here, the gold plating is worn off completely and up there. So it seems like whoever's been playing this keyboard has been very much a bottom and top kind of guy over the years. I mean, I wonder whether it was something in manufacturing, they just didn't all get equally well coated, but yeah, clearly have an issue not only with the contacts going, but with the fact the gold has simply worn off over the years. But, you know, having said that, I am 100% sure that we're going to have a fully working keyboard at the end of this, so not too much of a problem. Okay, so we're ready to put the new contacts back in. But I should move these out of the way. I'm going to pop these over here on the Jupiter, which is a handy receptacle for such things. Put those to one side. Careful not to touch them, because I think they will probably be getting used again by somebody. And the other ones, not so bothered about. I'm going to start replacing these from this end. Now, I have no idea how to do this. There are just little rubber nubbins there, I think that's a technical term, that you have to fit through holes on the board. Not sure how that's going to work. I'm just being careful not to touch this with my fingers. And again, I'm starting with the sixes at the bottom, despite the fact I thought you were supposed to start with sevens at the bottom, because when I opened her up, I actually had my 7 at the top. So actually they seem to push through quite easily. So I'll probably just get the first one in and then switch the camera off and leave you to it, because I don't think there's anything to learn from this. Back in. Actually, quickly to show you, I decided to go straight to the other end and place the 7 one in first, and while I'm doing this I just noticed I couldn't get these little rubber nubbins through the holes. And so this keyboard is clearly designed so the 7 is at the top, because the way these nubbins are laid out, there's a hole there, then there's a gap there and there. So if you tried to put, I'm guessing, if you tried to put a 6 in, would that work? No, it wouldn't. So clearly some are designed the opposite way round, I think. Clearly it's 7 at this end and 6 at that end, and it's important because the nubbins must line up with the holes. That's my final lesson to you on putting these back in. So I've just put them all in now, and as I was going along and I got into a rhythm with these, it was quite easy to push them down. If in any situation you feel they haven't gone through too well, if you go onto the other side, this is where these little nubbins come through. It's easy to actually just to go along with your finger, rub along those, and that will kind of bring them through fully, and you can be sure they're all in place. So that is all my contacts replaced. I'm going to screw this back down now, noting in what good condition this felt is in down here. I wonder if this felt has actually been replaced when they replaced the other key contacts on here. And that might be why this keyboard sounds so good. Maybe other people complain about clackety keyboards just because it hasn't got that piece of felt in there, I don't know, but it's not beyond the wit of man to replace that. And the keyboard feels good to me. So I'm going to put this back in place, and then I'm going to do a tiny bit of soldering, which I may or may not leave in the vid, and then we're going to play it. Okay. Okay, I have no idea whether this is particularly visible to this video. As I said, I didn't intend to video any of this today. I don't normally video things, so I'm making this up as I go along. So this is the other part of my well, a bit of upkeep on a Korg Polysix. I've just replaced all the key contacts, and this is just a little bit in the middle for anyone interested in the Modypoly upgrade. There's a Modypoly chip as it sits inside. The one that was already inside mine when it came still has these 3 wires not attached to anything. Now they've been taped up out of the way, so I've just taken that tape off them to release them, and it's this orange wire that I'm going to have to separate off that I want to connect to this resistor just in here. The information's in the manual if you want to get it, but it kind of shows you the layout from where the actual chip's gone into the board. It's just vertically up to this little R51 resistor here. I know nothing about electronics, so just because I'm saying R51 resistor, that's just because it's got a label on it, and all I know is I have to solder onto that. Now I've got a decent soldering iron here, a good proper station, and I've done quite a bit of soldering in the past, if only for practice for things like this. Last thing I fixed was my Boss DR110, where the board had been slightly damaged by, funnily enough, battery leakage. I mean, that's what these things, Poly61s, are supposedly famous for. Of course, that hasn't happened in this. There's a battery, no leakage. This is in great, I mean, this is in as good condition as they possibly come. So, right, I'm just going to show you what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to have to separate this off a little bit more, I think, and separate this orange one. I'm going to tie the red and the brown one off again afterwards. Now the red one, I was actually going to attach that for pitch bend wheel. I tried to order the resistor and the capacitor that I'd have to put on that as well the other day, but it failed, and this kit arrived here now, but failed to be able to order it. So I'm just gonna do the filter mod. So this orange cable attached to that, I will be able to control filter over MIDI, and who doesn't want to be able to do that? I mean, I've never done it, but you know, since you got the kit here, why not? And everything's open now, so I've just got to neatly solder that on there. Neatly, of course, being the operative word, and then I will tie this up afterwards. Okay, well, I think that's done. As you can see, I've just held that wire in the bit of blue tack there to place against the end of that resistor, and I think I have just soldered that on the end there, not too unneatly. I'm just going to check now so you can see the moment of truth. When I remove this blue tack, does everything just fall apart or does it stay in place? Okay, that board's nice and clean still. That feels to me like that's soldered right on, so I should have my filter over MIDI now. Looks good to me. Yep, there we go. Everything's soldered. New board, which I'll go and get. I say new board, it feels like new. It's about to go back in. In fact, I'm going to screw that in this way around. I think that makes sense from underneath, and then I'll tighten that up afterwards. That's what I'm going to do. Jupiter 8 covered in old bits of rubber over here. Really handy receptacle for that, you'd be surprised to notice. So, let me get the screws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I cannot tell you actually. Low power mode. I cannot tell you actually how straightforward this is to do. It's really not difficult for anybody, so if you do want to sort your keyboard out on a Korg, don't worry about it. Get on and do it, is all I can say. As far as I can see. Right, let's get these screws in first, because I can eyeball these quite easily. Yeah, it's a good way of doing it actually. There we go, first one's in. Let's have a look again. Second one will be in place now. Yeah, nice and easy, which means these other ones must be lined up, I guess. So where are they, if I can see from here? I know some people think this is an arse about face way of doing it, but actually it's pretty simple. Lined up. It feels like a quality bit of kit, this, for all the slagging it gets, I have to say. Alright, that's good. I'll do the rest. I'll come back to the video afterwards. Okay, so Poly 61 put back together. I'm going to switch it on. Let's see what happens. Hopefully it lights up. That's a nice start. No sound. This is just a brass patch. It's enough for us to hear what's going on. Not only does every key work properly now, but it's a nice feeling actually. It is a nice feeling. Feels lovely. One thing I love about the Poly 61, I have to say, now I've got a nice keyboard underneath me again. If you want some cheesy Ital or Vox organ sounds, it sounds like a 70s synth. Anyway. This is not a demo of the synth, it's just to show you. Realistically, if I hadn't messed around and thought at the last minute that I was going to record all this, it's a half-hour job. It's so simple. Just screws out from underneath, keyboard comes out, replace the contacts, back in, boom, job's good. And the thing is, again, this does not feel like a cheap synth. This keyboard easily, easily feels as good as any of the American synths I've owned. It's feel it. Probably feels better than the Oberheim, way better than the Prophet 5 ever was, a million miles better than the Pro 1 over there is. Yeah, it's up there with the Rolands really. I think it's cheaper than the Rolands, but feels fine. I love this synth, what can I say? There you go. That's how to replace the key contact in a Korg Polysix.